start our session on the AI-driven learning revolution. People maybe don't realize the extent to which the integration and leveraging of AI is today radically transforming the way we learn, the way education processes are developing. In fact, AI is forcing us to rethink the way we learn about things, is forcing teachers to think or rethink about the way they do their job. And AI is also becoming a tremendous tool for social inclusion, for expanding opportunities for people to join in economic activity because of the ability now to access to knowledge which was beyond their reach just a few years ago. And to explore this ongoing revolution, I invite you to listen very carefully to the dialogue that you will have between Kobi, who is professor at the Department of Software and Information System Engineering at the Ben-Gurion University, and who is also a reader, School of Informatics at the University of Edinburgh in the UK. Kobi is an expert on AI, has devoted a number of years researching, developing ideas on the impact of AI on learning and on education. And so you will see that he is able to bring today to us some kind of mind-opening insights and creating also some broadening of the view. We can use AI also in our personal life on the way we learn things. And then to dialogue with Kobi, we have Ganapati Venugopal, who is a partner and one of the co-founders of Axilos Ventures here in Bangalore. And I think we have known each other, VG, for 25 years, about that. And let me tell you something. I have met very few people in the world who are so focused, so I was about to say so obsessed with learning. Almost every single time I have a conversation with VG, he has a new book that he is advising me to read and to learn about it. Every time we meet, he is so much in tune with what is happening elsewhere, that every time we are preparing for IGIC, it is a very, I would say, enjoyable duty for me to sit with him and to learn from him. So you will see, you will have the next 45 minutes, which will be not only enjoyable, but very useful and very illuminating. Kobi and VG, please, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Claude, for being so kind and generous. Welcome, Kobi.
Thank you very much, Vijay. It's a pleasure to be here. First time in India, and I'm already extremely excited and enjoying the conference very much. It's a wonderful group of people and super interesting topics.
Yeah. So I'm excited by about what we are going to spend the next 45 minutes on. Just by way of introduction, as Claude mentioned, I'm Ganapati Venugopal. People call me VG. I run a seed fund called Axelo. In case you're wondering why I have been selected to moderate this session or have this dialogue with Kobi, I have a daughter who is 17 years old. So learning and education is quite an area that I'm interested in, and some of the not-for-profit work that I do is also in the field of education. So as an individual, I'm quite invested in the future of education and learning. So that said, Kobi, before we actually start, for the benefit of the audience, tell us a little bit about yourself, your work that we can't normally find on internet or on ChatGPT.
Sure, with pleasure. So I've always been excited about education, and I remember that from a young age, I really wanted to go to study abroad because I wanted to be a better teacher. And I thought that going abroad and meeting different kinds of people from all over the world would be the best way to do that. And I didn't even realize that studying abroad, also going for abroad for a PhD, that was my dream. I didn't even realize that I was also be doing a lot of research. And it took me a while to find a way to kind of combine um, both of these passions in my life, that is interacting and learning, and also meeting people from different backgrounds and perspectives. And I should say that that's one of the reasons my dream was to come to India, because I've been meeting so many amazing people from India, whether in the US at Harvard, where I got my PhD, or in the UK or Israel now, where I work. And you guys have such an amazing educational system here that manufactures so many creative minds. I really wanted to see the hub spot where it all begins.
Welcome to India. I should admit that from morning we have been hearing or been part of many sessions that talk about AI can do this and AI can do that and all that. But as a student of technology trends, having seen technology from a distance over the last 20-25 years, I approached this session with some healthy skepticism. I don't think any technology is as revolutionary as it sounds, but with every technology wave, we see some progress. So it's important to objectively look at the impact. I'm also glad that I'm joined by Kobi, who shares similar skepticism about calling it revolutionary and all of that. So hopefully this dialogue is going to be quite interesting. All of us use AI in very different ways. We all mean different things when we refer to this term. Sometimes it reminds me of the six blind men and the elephant, right? Every one of us has a different view about what it actually means, what it can do. But like with every new technology that comes in, there is a lot of fear surrounding it, right? At least in the enterprise world, people are really worried about how many jobs will get displaced. There are enough and more memes floating around on entry level jobs completely disappearing, and what will graduates do after they come out. Today, a plumber in New York makes more money than a computer scientist, right? So, uh, in as little as a year, computer science as an area of pursuit for undergraduate studies has fallen from number 1 to number 4 or 5, and it is falling with every passing day. So while there is this fear in the enterprise world, the startup world sees it as an opportunity. So enough and more, Sudhir in the first session of the day spoke about the amount of money that is going into AI and deep tech. Right, billions of dollars are being poured. Companies are raising money, burning money, We still haven't seen very large use cases or value coming out. So it is a trend that all of us are seeing kind of unfold. But in all of this, I think if we admit the fact that AI is something that is, as a technology, revolutionary enough for it to reduce human effort. And if you look at a country like India, where we have a responsibility to educate, 150 million plus students who are currently in school or who are likely to come out of school, and they have to go towards pursuing their undergraduate studies before they get ready for a career. It does seem like something that is important for us to take seriously, because we are not going to be able to produce that many teachers. We are not going to be able to train even the existing teachers. So we obviously are in need of some technology that can magically transform this. So this obviously has some potential. So during the course of this dialogue, I hope to touch upon a few of these aspects and get Kobi's learned perspectives around this. Obviously, this is not a very large group. Both of us are affable people, so please don't feel hesitant to interrupt us or ask us any questions that may come up as we speak. So just feel free to do that so that we can make it an interactive dialogue. All that being said, I have 5 questions that I've thought through for Kobi, and then based on the responses, you guys can interact or hopefully have some questions from your side at the end. Normally, when we do sessions like this, we have this habit of going top down, looking at the 60,000 feet view, and then coming down to what's happening at the ground level. I think just from an engagement and learning perspective, it would be better if we went the other way around. So I'm going to actually ask Kobi to answer my first question, which is around give us 1 or 2 concrete examples from your work about how AI has transformed the experience of education, learning, the process, right? So that we can build on from there.
And by the way, before I answer that, I want to cling to an example you gave. You said about, or a definition about AI reducing human effort. And I want to frame my entire answer today, and maybe on a different interpretation of AI. Let's not reduce human effort. Let's take the human effort that we are expending and keep it, but make us better, more creative, better problem solvers, better teammates. We don't have to go to the Karl Marx interpretation. We can use AI to improve. And that is exactly when we get there, is when we're able to truly bring about a transformative revolution, like Claude said, in education. I don't think we're there yet. Where we can go is meeting different barriers. I want to mention just a few barriers that I see that are keeping us from realizing the revolution. And the first is kind of self-evident. I mean, the technology just isn't good enough. When I started PhD in the early 2000s, people were still reeling from what was known as the AI winter. By the way, contrary to what you might think, AI isn't a new baby, right? It's been around for over 50 years. It's just that what we're witnessing, such a culmination of algorithms, of accessibility, of opportunities, that it's easy to think that AI is new. But AI has been around for a long time, and it's known ups and downs. And part of the thing that we really have to be careful about is coming straight about the hype and not building towers in the air. And in particular, LLMs and generative AI, ChatGPTs and their synonyms, they weren't designed to be teachers. They were designed to solve problems. They're not good at being teachers, regardless of what you ask them to do. And that's part of the reason why they are not being used in the best way in schools. So we've heard examples today of people using them to solve homework in school, or teachers using them to create lesson plans in school, I contend that's not a very good or a very fulfilling use of AI in schools, because it doesn't push our effort in the direction that we want it to go. Again, a good teacher or a good learner is able to apply critical problem-solving skills, is able to be creative, is able to do trial and error and exploration. We know that's how discoveries are created in science, and that's exactly how we learn. And that's where I would like to push AI to be truly transformative. So here's an example for you. Once we took a teacher who we gave kind of a recommendation system using AI to help them correct students' mistakes, and it kept alerting the teacher. This group of students, they're completely making a mistaken judgment about the problem they're solving. And the teacher said, I know, I agree, they're on the wrong path, but I love what they're doing. I love how they're talking about the problem. I love how they're exchanging ideas. I'm not going to intervene. I'm just going to stand and I want to see where they're going with that idea. And this is an example of what makes a good teacher that AI currently does not have, right? It's not intellectual intelligence, it's emotional intelligence. It's the ability to have empathy, it's the ability to understand when to intervene and in the right way. And I don't think AI's role is to go there. And that's another reason why I'm not that scared about AI coming and taking and replacing our jobs, because I don't think that's the role of AI isn't to replace a doctor. The role of AI is to bring about a doctor using AI and bringing about a teacher using AI. We just have to get there. And that brings me to the other kind of barrier that we're facing, which is that the educational ecosystem isn't geared towards using AI. And the reason is because it's been there for so many years, it's set in stone, it's very rigid, and it doesn't allow for us to provide these new kinds of tools. By the way, it also happened with the internet. People said the internet is coming to education. It will make all of these information accessible to people from all over the world, from different classes, genders, cultural background, and it's going to revolutionize education. And I don't think it revolutionized education. It definitely made education much more accessible, but we're still kind of enslaved in this rote learning educational systems that have to give us grades, that assess our work in a way that is true or false. Think of multiple choice questions. They discourage working as a team. If you work as a team in my university, you're gonna get punished. But these days, working as the team is the way to push things forward. I mean, we give Nobel Prizes just to one person, but don't let that fool you. Not one person can make a scientific discovery of transformative power. It takes a group, and it takes understanding soft skills and team decision making and lots of good stuff. And that's where we need to take our kids today. And that is, I think, a very important role where AI can play a part. And here's another example from my research. We're trying to push students to be better collaborative problem solvers by letting them work as a team to solve exploratory problems. And then the role of the AI isn't to interfere or to try to replace the teacher. It's just to be a friendly parrot on the shoulder of the team and trying to understand what the team is doing, and then alert the teacher only when necessary. So for example, if the team has what we call a critical moment, if they're stuck, or if they're ignoring an important statement a team member said. By the way, that often happens when the team member is a woman. Her male compatriots ignore an important statement or keep butting in. So there the role of AI, I think, can come in handy, because AI can identify or detect these critical moments and then help teachers understand that there's an issue with one of these teams, and maybe it's good for the teacher to intervene and help them. Again, the AI isn't trying to replace the teacher, but augment the teacher's ability to support these teams making good decisions together. And we're working with educational experts to try to make that happen. So we're trying to give the AI educational theory and cognitive psychology background to help it detect exactly the right moments for the team to alert the teacher.
Got that. I had actually put in a query on ChatGPT before coming into this session on, I'm entering a session like this, what are the questions I should ask? And one of the questions I got was, what's the most common myth about AI in education that you wish more people understood? But here is the point to prove. Without me asking the question, Kobi has answered it as part of his first response. Just one more thought. I had actually two scary thoughts when I was thinking about a session like this. One thought was that, depending on what you read, about 85-90% of knowledge, stock of knowledge that's available is already kind of captured in these models, right? And with time, some more will get captured. And if we assume that, these kind of tools will get used more often by students, whether it is in school or undergraduate courses, right? The question that worries me is, when the flow of new knowledge is going to trickle down, and when the stock of knowledge is already kind of baked into all these ChatGPT kind of search models, right? And if, let us say, there is a critical point at which a large percentage of the people start using this stock, right? What do you see as the impact on new knowledge getting created?
Well, and new knowledge, by the way, this is exactly what we were talking about in the earlier panel about learning to learn. So when learners attain critical problem solving skills and creativity, they're able to create artifacts that are both original and useful. And that's exactly where we want to, that to me is learning. That is the right assessment of learning.
But if you start using
it's
tools,
not multiple choice, right? It's not about information retrieval.
No, but if the percentage of people who are beginning to use these tools, right, and they source their knowledge from these tools, and there is this stock of knowledge, and there is no new knowledge that is going in. People are just regurgitating whatever is already available.
No, we don't want that kind of closed loop. That's a bad closed loop, especially because we know that a lot of the knowledge that's generated by LLMs and generative AI isn't reliable. Again, the technology isn't there yet. So the last thing we want to do is to propagate bad knowledge. Let me again give you an example of how we're trying to kind of make up for those kinds of challenges. So there's an enterprise called Citizen Science, where scientists and the public work together to discover knowledge. And through the internet and AI, we're helping make that happen at scale. For example, students are able to look at pictures of the Hubble Space Telescope and help scientists understand what kind of galaxies are being photographed, even when the pictures are very fuzzy, and automatic recognition of the galaxy type doesn't work. Or we work with the Crick Institute in London, where we take the public, and again, this can be students, kids interested in science, anyone with a passion for collaborative scientific work, and then they're given these two-dimensional slices of HeLa cells, which are cancer cells that were farmed from a person called Henrietta Lacks. Has anyone here ever heard of Henrietta Lacks? If not, I highly recommend to look her up at Google Wikipedia. It's an amazing story of social mobility and of class deference and of science. So these students are given these two-dimensional um, renditions of membranes from cancer cells, and they're helping the scientists build three-dimensional models of them by outlining the cancerous segments with their mouse. They get kind of a short tutorial, and then they're able to help scientists generate new knowledge. I just think it's amazing. And so if you're interested in citizen, and we use AI to kind of help recommend the right kinds of projects to students. So we have a partner in the States called SciStarter that have a portal of over 3,000 citizen science. One of my personal favorites is called Weather Watch, where you're helping decipher captain's logs from ships in the 18th and 19th centuries, and then understand how weather patterns change in the oceans over hundreds of years. And so we're trying to help recommend the right kind of projects for the right kind of people and bring the scientists and the students together. And that's just amazing, because it not only, rather than the same kind of boring lecture that kids get in school, they're able to learn by doing. That's another one of those buzzwords that I think is really coming out, because they're interacting with the scientists. They don't meet them, right? They're interacting them just within the case of this scientific discovery. It's a great use of AI, because you're not trying to get it to directly teach the students, but to help recommend the right kind of projects and to keep the students engaged. And the students are loving it, and they're learning something new, and they're creating, they're making something happen.
All that. The second scary thought is, when we visualize learning, when we visualize education, right? We always look at these two things in the context of institutions, schools, universities, corporates, where employees get to learn, right? And I think if we apply logical reasoning to where we see technology headed, there is a big decoupling that is happening, right? Kids are spending more time on their personal devices than being in classroom. Adults are spending more time on devices, than attending corporate learning programs. So obviously, the competition for attention is shifting towards what's happening outside the institutions, right? How do we visualize a future where most of learning is going to happen outside of institutions? And what happens to these hierarchies that we have formed, right? You get into the best schools, you come out of these schools, you want to get into the best universities. So you come out of these universities, you want to start something on your own, or you want to join a top company in a particular industry. There is a certain hierarchy that we have largely laid out today, right? Now, if we admit the possibility of where technology is headed now, and if we admit that this decoupling is happening, right? What is the future of these institutions? How would we see a world in which learning is happening in a very democratized manner without really having to follow any particular structure? And what are the consequences of that for us as a society?
Right. So this is a very important question that I don't have a good answer for. I'm just as frustrated as any person. So there was the person sitting in my chair after lunch said they were a terrified teacher. There was another T there. I forget what was that. But I say it again. A tale of a terrified teacher. And they're absolutely right. I mean, at Ben-Gurion, engineering classes are still 3 consecutive hours. I mean, how can you expect kids today to be able to sit down in a lecture hall for 3 consecutive hours? I just think it's completely inefficient and old-fashioned, and does not even begin to stimulate in the way that you were just describing.
And more so, our current view around degrees, right, or accreditations, will they even hold? right? Do people need to necessarily demonstrate that they've been to a school or a university to prove that they are at a certain level of expertise or they have crossed a certain level of learning?
So when I was talking to Claude about brainstorming about how we would talk about this panel, he mentioned that are we going to be focusing on education within the institutions and the infrastructure, or rather learning, which is might be a better term for what we're talking about, right? Learning as in lifelong learning. I don't have a problem with people getting the skills they need to be more creative and to be better problem solvers outside of the canonical, rigid ecosystem that is still captive in the past. I mean, there's this famous TED talk that compares schools to jails from the 19th century, and we realize that's exactly how they were created. I don't have a problem personally, moving beyond. I don't think that university education, for example, is the one and end all goal in order to be a good person.
Right now it seems like, but we definitely have to get comfortable with the notion.
But I do think that skills, remember I asked you, what is the biggest challenge for India's in India's elementary schools, and you said, well, it's the learner skills. How did you phrase it?
Yeah.
And that is a big problem. Let's give them those skills in any way possible. Doesn't have to involve teachers. Doesn't have to involve teachers. It obviously should be involving technology. And exactly in what shape or form, that's a very good question. Yeah. I will say the World Bank, I just heard on the BBC before going on the plane yesterday morning, they said that the World Bank did a study where they showed that in rural villages in India, just a little bit of technology helped advance the educational attainments of students much more than it did in more developed countries. So there's clearly a lot we can push in India with technology, a lot where we can go, even more than in the developed countries.
It brings me to this question. If you read the headlines about India from outside, right, we are aspiring to be a developed nation by 2047. Right, there are different numbers being touted about in terms of where will we be in terms of GDP and per capita GDP and all that. If you look at the actual education stats, we seem to have done a better job, pretty good job as a country in terms of making sure that kids turn up in school. The school enrollment for kids between the age of 5 and 15 in India has steadily climbed from less than 40% when we got independence 75 years back to about 95-96% plus across the country. Some states could be slightly lower, but we still have a long way to go in terms of foundational literacy and numeracy. Kids are turning up at school, but there is a very famous report that comes out every year that actually looks at the literacy and numeracy levels of kids in grade 2, grade 5 and grade 8, right? And while the numbers are trending up, it is not a number that we are very proud about in that, when they measure kids in grade 8, about what kind of reading skills and numeracy skills that they have, more than 1/3 of the kids fall below grade 5, right? And half of that actually fall below grade 2, right? Now, this problem is not going to be solved by infrastructure alone, right? This problem needs to be, thought of at a different scale. Technology has a big role to play. My question to you, Kobi, is you have done a lot of work on the teacher training side, right? Using technology. Give us a couple of or 2 or 3 concrete ideas around how we can apply what you have learned from the programs that you have run for teachers that we can take back and make sure that the challenges that we are currently trying to solve at the elementary school level or middle school or high school, right? So that kids have the right literary and numeracy skills as they go through schooling, not just about sitting in classes. That will be very useful.
Yeah, so I should say, I think teacher training is one of those realms where it's a classic example of how technology should be helping us augment the teacher's capabilities, not trying to replace or do something instead of the teacher. And in particular, teacher training is a goal where I think that the recent developments in AI, even though that the tools are still flawed, apropos the ethical and reliability issues that we may or may not talk about today, that are super relevant for the ChatGPT slash generative AI models, but they still hold a lot of strength and potential for helping to train teachers. And why? Because there's just a huge need for augmenting teachers' abilities to be better conveyors of knowledge. So in my university in Israel is in the Negev Desert. There's a critical lack of math teachers there. And with a grant that we received from the Israeli government, we're working with Arab and Jewish teachers in the Negev Desert and trying to help them teach geometry. So what we're doing as a first stage is understanding where the issues are. So there's something called the Van Haley scale, which is cognitive scale for labeling teacher competency in geometry. So we're focusing on geometry because that's a key aspect of mathematics that we're lacking. And we're using that scale to try to understand, first and foremost, where teachers are. So we want to get teachers up to level 5, but most teachers are between 2 and 3. So just understanding where teachers need help, that's already a big assistance. By the way, many teachers are ashamed to say they don't know. That's the big part of the problem. So we're helping them. We've divided a test that teachers can take anonymously, completely on their own, and first and foremost, just get a signal. It's very helpful. No judgment. And the next step is going to help them improve their pedagogical content knowledge. So there are two aspects to being good teachers, right? There's knowing the material and there's being able to teach it. So the first is to detect how well they know the material. The second is to try to help them teach what they know. And for that, we're building the simulation system where we're going to be using different personas of students that help teachers bounce and reflect off their teaching. Again, they're doing this complete simulation. By the way, we're not the first to be doing this. Everybody's now is trying to think about using AI to build these good simulation systems. The simulation system, in order to work well, they really have to be able to kind of put teachers in front of the students from different aspects of the classroom, different backgrounds, and different knowledge levels. Otherwise, it's not going to be any good, right? The simulation system has to be like a flight simulator, and it has to take them places where they're challenged and places where they might not want to be. But as a result, they'll be able to improve their teaching standards. And again, I think that's a very, very good use of AI, and hopefully we can take these kinds of ideas and deploy them in different places in the world.
Oh, that's helpful. I wonder whether just by enabling the existing set of teachers, whether we will be able to address the kind of numbers that we have in India, right? So, if you ask me, if Khan Academy can have one Salman Khan, and 1 million kids can learn from what he is able to do, and now there are other people in Khan Academy who are teaching as well, right? Models that can really go beyond the number of teachers, right? How do you if a teacher has a span of 30 kids whom they can teach, right? Can you really have the benefit of a good teacher who can teach 100,000 kids? Technology makes it possible, right? So just a thought. I know we are running out of time. I promised 5 questions from my side. I'm done with 4. The last question, a point that you briefly alluded to earlier, right? As the rate of technology accelerates, our own knowledge becomes obsolete faster. So as professionals who need to stay on top, and if we see ourselves as lifelong learners to stay current, what are the 2-3 hacks, right, that you would give this group of people? And I'll give you an example, right? 2 years back, I think I was in a session like this at IJC with Paul Sappho, right, a futurist and a professor at Stanford, and we asked him a question. Tell us one thing that we can do after we step out of this room, right, to help improve our understanding of future, right? How can we visualize future better? And he said, this is something that you can do right away. Observe teenagers.
Observe?
Teenagers.
Really?
Right? Because the future is going to be, what these people grow up doing. So the future is right in front of you. You're just looking at wrong places. Go and observe your kids. Go and observe teenagers and see what is it that they are doing. You will get a good sense of future. The reason why I gave this example is this is something that is concrete enough for us to take it as an idea and go and observe. And I have actually benefited, right? I have started observing my own daughter and her friends as to what they do, far more insight than what I could possibly come up by myself by ruminating on what future could look like. So 2 or 3 hacks, 2 or 3 behaviors that we can easily implement once we step out of this room for us to...
Yeah, with respect to learning.
With respect to being lifelong learners, and how do we protect ourselves or insure ourselves against the possibility of our knowledge becoming obsolete?
So easy. I would say first, reframe what AI is. It's not a problem solver. It's an enabler, right? This goes back to my earlier comment. It shouldn't be a tool for us to write that summary or that report. It should be a tool to help augment our capabilities. By the way, that's where the original name Copilot that Microsoft are using now to name their AI assistant came from. It's supposed to be a helper. So that's the first big thing. And then really, when you think about AI as an enabler, I think it kind of changes the way you're using it, hopefully in the right direction. Another very important thing that should be said is that to understand what this, to become AI literacy, right? This is what really I mean. We have to be AI literate. And a big part of it is to understand where the system gets it wrong. You can understand much more about a system when you look at what it gets wrong as opposed to what it gets right. So that's the second thing. And here I can't state enough about how important it is to understand that AI is biased and it reflects. I mean, this is now a trope to say it because there's so many examples, but I just want to say from my own history, we had a neural network in the school with big pilot with the teachers and some scientists, and it was creating mathematical problems for students, and by some commotion, we had a data set that the vast majority of it was generated by male students. And we didn't take notice of that. And we trained our algorithms. And then in the pilot, we generated problems for the kids to solve. And this female student got a problem that was far too difficult for her. And I looked at the data later. I could see that the algorithm was completely thrown off by her. And she got very upset because she literally started crying because there were all these people behind her, and I felt very bad about that later. And then I realized I should never have done something like that. I should have been far more sensitive about the potential critical critical bars and sensitive points of the algorithm, which I am by now. And that I tell all of my students this example now, and I remind them that when they're going to be future data scientists and programmers or VC capitalists, they always have to remember that they're creating tools, and these tools are going to be out there, and they're going to be affecting and intervening in society. And if they don't think about those things, that's not then that's not going to be very good for society.
Thanks, Kobi. Now we'll possibly open out for those in the audience. Any questions for Kobi?
Hi, my name is Ullas. Just as a background, I was a teacher in a school. Now run an AI company, so
You
see
should be
the see the challenge. A couple of comments first, and then a question, right? So when we today talk about hey, we should discourage children from using AI to do their homework. I think it's a lost cause already, right? Because it's like they are on opium, and there's no turning back because they already know what needs to be done. So I think the only solution I see to a problem like that is, do they need to write summaries anymore at all? Or do we get them to do something else which maybe the AI can't do? Because again, we can't be limiting their access to AI anymore because they already have it. So that's one. Secondly, in the context of what the both of you spoke, I think what would help is if we were to break it down and segment it and say, hey, let's look at India. And if we did look at India and government schools, I think both of you made very valuable points. My only submission there would be, the reason why I see education not really working so well is because of a lack of comprehension in students and in teachers, which is leading to them either losing interest or not gaining skills, etc. So it's that lack of comprehension that's the challenge. Both of you initially started off with some apprehension towards AI, maybe not doing it, but towards the middle to the latter half, both of you felt that AI could help with that. I agree too that I think if we were to have more empathetic AI engines that just don't give out answers, but encourage students to think and comprehend and help them better, that could be a better solution. So don't have a question per se, but I think I agree with most of the things that you guys said. Yeah.
The solution to the homework problem is easy. Build better homeworks. AI isn't plug and play, right? You can't just plug it into the existing educational framework. You have to think harder. So I teach introduction to probability at Ben-Gurion, and we give them programming homeworks. And after we saw that ChatGPT 3.0 solves the homework, we had to go up a level, and we built the homework to be a bit more abstract, to have them to think more high level, and ChatGPT didn't do it. That was 2 years ago. And so the homework improved. Last year, we discovered that ChatGPT 4.0 solves that homework. So we had to think again, and we came up with an even better problem set. But it requires efforts on the teacher's side. Now, most teachers are overworked and underpaid, right? They don't have time to be doing this kind of effortful thinking. So this is exactly the challenge. We have to help the teacher. We have a lot is to give the teachers the support they need to be good users of this technology. I'm a big believer in teachers.
Yeah, just as an aside, you said that there is no turning back. I should also tell you that there is nothing more scary to a high school kid or an undergrad student than a tool called Turnitin.
No, I know Turnitin. Why?
Right?
Why is it scary?
They're terrified because it gives out a number of it puts out a number called similarity index.
Right.
Right. So I had come across an instance where it put out a similarity index of 30%. Right. The typical threshold of a school or a college is about 15%. Now, there is there is an option for the similarity index to take into account acknowledgements and without acknowledgements, right? It took into account with acknowledgements because the teacher had forgotten to untick that box, right? So it had taken all the references, and obviously references are things that people refer to, right? And the more obvious references score high on similarity index. So, I was just observing the way students were behaving when they got their Turnitin scores. I should say that, it works quite well in terms of putting fear into students. Yeah.
Right.
Time
Hi.
is up, but we will take one more question.
Right. My name is Animesh. I am Chief Operating Officer of Ripple's Learning and Research. I handle emerging technologies as part of training and certification division, and generative AI for teachers and academia is one of the certifications that I drive. Now, I have a very specific question, and I'm thank you, Venu, for asking all the questions that was in my mind to Kobi, and Kobi for answering it so well. I have one maybe to one of the questions that you asked in terms of future of teaching. Every technology evolves. For example, internet came in early 90s. We had touchscreen coming in 2005. We have Ubers and Olas another 8 or 10 years, and then that has redefined how travel happens in the world today. In terms of teaching, how do you see a decade or 2 decades later? What are key competencies teachers should have, and maybe if you can list a few that would ensure that teachers are still doing the fabulous job that they are meant to do in terms of shaping careers, especially with a generation that loves devices more than interaction with humans. That's my precise question.
Yeah, she had a question. Let her finish her question, and then Kobi, you can answer both these questions because I see the organizers getting quite worried about. Yeah, last question. You can answer both.
Yeah, you were talking about how AI hasn't reached the complete potential what it was supposed to in the learning atmosphere. Like, if you could give 3 next go-to steps for institutions whom the tools for even for the edutech, what are those 3 things that they can quickly adopt to make sure they reach for the potential what you are visualizing AI to be ruling in terms of learning atmosphere?
What are 3 things?
In term just to visualize that, if you said that it's AI is not potential, I mean it's not reached its potential in terms of learning atmosphere, what are the next 3 steps that these institutions can adopt to make sure they actually reach the complete potential of AI in learning atmosphere?
Okay. Well, I'll answer the first question. Again, I'm not an expert in education, but I think that good teachers should be ones that aren't afraid. Obviously, they aren't afraid of using technology. And they're able to work well with a group of students. I mean, how many students do you have in a classroom in India?
26.
26?
No, between 30 and there are schools in which a class can have as high as 60, 70.
70 students. So so I would take those 70 students, divide them into teams, and have teachers work with the help of technology to get those teams to perform, to be to learn, to be collaborative team members, and to employ collaborative learning skills. As I said, I think soft skills and team decision making are the best things that we could teach them, and that's where I would push teachers. So it's not the teacher's fault that the technology isn't good enough, right? So what are those? The technology has to be better. Hopefully there'll be more researchers who care about taking the AI technology and making it a better teacher, because to do that you need to push more than what they were designed to do.
Would you think that would be a really good startup in edutech? Like, if you had to put 3 ideas for edutech startups.
EdTech is I think so. EdTech is already like a $5 billion market just in the U.S. What's the greatest use of EdTech? Wow. Do you have an idea?
I'm not invested that much in the sector.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, but going by whatever history has shown us, it's not like EdTech companies have really made even a scratch on learning outcomes, right? So on that note, thank you so much for being a patient but an engaging audience, and thanks, Kobi. Whatever we discussed today is possibly the last word on where learning is headed, or what AI can do to learning. But hopefully, we have left you with a few thoughts that you can mull over, and hopefully there are a few things that you came into this session with on which you are thinking a little differently about. If that happens, I hope the purpose of the session would have been served. Thank you so much, Kobi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much to Kobi and to Vijay. We are just needing the time to open the wall, and we will be starting with the last session of the day, which is capitalizing on the innovation dynamics between startups and established corporations. In the meantime, the brainstorming on green tech has started in the Converge room.